everyone, and welcome to week 13. This screencast is just going to go over the module instructions for this week and what you need to do to progress in your project. So we're just going to keep on moving here in our gift booklet project. So this week you're just going to be making some more edits, doing some more thumbnails to get ready to submit the final project next week. So the first step of the process book this week is to do some thumbnailing to explore cover options. So most of you explored a cover last week just to kind of fill the placeholder when you were laying out the full booklet. So this week you're going to have the opportunity to dive in and do some more exploration. So the cover of this assignment is kind of where you can have the most creative liberty in terms of using typefaces as kind of a creative medium to express the concept that you've decided for your book. So with that said, don't go too overboard. We're still only using typography, no pictures or elaborate illustrations or anything. So just type from the type selections for this class. And you, on the cover, obviously will have the name of the talk. You might choose to put who it's by. And you're just going to have a layout that's eye-catching and bold. You want the first thing you see to be the title. That should have the most hierarchy given to it. And yeah, you're just going to explore all the options here in step 6. In step 7, you're going to choose your top 3 that you think have the most potential and are working the best. And then in step 8, you're going to apply your chosen cover. So from those 3, pick the one you think is working the best and use it here in this second draft, step 8. Use any feedback that you received in the peer discussion board last week to update your booklet. I'm going to go through after this video in the next couple days and try and leave some suggestions on that peer feedback board from last week, week 12. So take a look at that and use all of that critique as you move forward to your second draft. So now this section is really useful down here where it says, what should I be looking for? Basically, this is a big checklist that you're going to want to go through and make sure that you feel confident in answering all of these bullet points here. And I'm going to go over some tools and tips to help you as you're going through these. So the first one is readability. Obviously, someone's going to be reading the booklet, and you want to look at it from the point of view of someone that's picking it up for the first time, a reader. Make sure it's clear where content flows from page to page. So when they finish reading one page, where do they start on the next page? They give some suggestions about column widths, and I think I talked about that a little bit last week. It's my opinion that you probably just want to stick to 2 column widths, and maybe one is like a full column of the page, and then one is 2 columns, half the page. Beyond that, I don't think you want more than 2 column widths because it becomes confusing as to where paragraphs relate, where one stops and starts. Do things like block quotes enhance the experience, or are they detracting? Everything obviously should be enhancing this someone reading it for the first time. So anything that you feel is distracting or is purely decorative, it doesn't serve a purpose, maybe now's the time to omit it. Look at the composition. Does it focus on the principles of design? In previous weeks, I've posted kind of a refresher on what those principles and elements of design are. So go back several weeks in the announcements and you can find that. Let's see. This part, when it talks about composition here, something that I find helpful to review with students, right, in this section is pacing. And I don't think they use that term specifically in this class, but I've heard it in some other design classes, and it's a really useful tool when designing multi-page documents. So I'm just going to take a second here to talk about pacing, and we're going to jump over to another page here real quick to talk about this. So I've pulled up this magazine here, and we're going to see how this magazine uses pacing to create a comprehensive layout. So magazines, booklets like you're doing, pamphlets, anything that has multiple pages, pacing becomes really important. So what pacing is basically how all the elements within a document that's multiple pages, how they come together to form a kit of parts that feels like they're related, but yet each page feels unique. So we'll kind of go through and talk about this. So on the cover of this magazine, obviously there's two covers here, but both of them have a full bleed, full page image. So one large image with some small type at the bottom, and that's typically how a magazine cover looks, right? You have your big image on the front as opposed to lots of tiny small images because it's the most eye-catching. You'll see this on a shelf. It'll grab your attention right away. But then when you flip it open, we don't see a repeated full page image again, right? We see a large image here, this model in the colorful outfit. That's about a third of the page. So you could probably fit around 3 of those images on this whole spread here. So we have an image that takes up a third of the page, and then over here on the left, we have this black and white image of the model. And that one is just a smaller image. So we've gone from the cover having one large full bleed image to the first spread having an image that's about a third of a page and one smaller image, and we still have some small type. So already we see they're establishing this kit of parts. So our options are we can have a full bleed image, an image that's a third of the page, or a tiny thumbnail image. So there's some pieces they're working with already. Then we go to the next page and we see that there is no large image on this page, but there are many small images. So instead of having this medium image and tiny image, they've opted in this spread to have lots of small images. So you see how the pacing is working here. If every page had one large full bleed image, it would get really boring, right? And the hierarchy wouldn't be there because every page would feel the same. You wouldn't know what was most important. You wouldn't know, is the cover more important than the second page or the third page if they all looked the same. But they're kind of establishing here the different parts of the magazine, right? The cover is the most important. This is a table of contents, which is important, but probably not the highlight of the magazine. This is a standard monthly feature, so every month they'll have a feature. So again, this is kind of the lesser part of the magazine. These are the departments that happen every month that are standard. Whereas if we go to the next page, this is a feature highlight of the magazine. So again, we have another full bleed image, a very large image, complemented by this large graphic of an ampersand over here. So we've gone back to how the cover was laid out again. So we're starting to kind of come full circle. So again, we started with the full bleed, we went with medium image, small image, lots of small images, we're back to full bleed image again. So you kind of cycle through this kit of parts, and we're kind of talking about this in terms of images, but you can do the same thing in terms of type, how large the type is, does it bleed off the page? You can do that with color, with paragraph styles. It's all about establishing this kit and then using the grid to pull all these different pieces together on different pages in a way that makes the magazine feel like it's the same magazine, but each page is special and different while all feeling related. So again, this one is a large full bleed. We go to the next one and we have the medium image again with some smaller images. So this one's kind of a collage with small images, but we have this large F that kind of is reflective of the large piece of type on this first page. Again, this one, some small images with a image that's about a quarter of a page. And this one, we're starting another highlight feature. And so again, we have one large full bleed image that complements this geometry typography over here. So you can see as we flip through this one has small images with a medium image. We're back to kind of a large image and a small image. So as you flip through this magazine, it's clear that every page feels unique, yet they all feel related. So that's kind of how you can think of pacing. It's applying these different pieces of a kit in a way that makes each page unique, but still feel like it's part of the same publication. And pacing is applied to things like in film, they use it a lot in how they vary their shots. You might have a shot that is pulled really far back that's showing a landscape, and the next shot might be a really close-up of the person's face. And then the next shot might pull back a little bit and be kind of a 3/4 in between, and then the next one might be a full landscape shot again. So you can see pacing applied to things other than design. And once you kind of start noticing it, it's hard not to see it everywhere. And it's a really interesting tool that creative people use when they're making their work. So hopefully this magazine kind of helped you understand the idea of pacing a little bit. So let's jump back to the instructions. So that falls under this composition section. Next, hierarchy. We've talked ad nauseum in this class about hierarchy, so hopefully you have a good understanding of that. Sizing and typographic elements. Look at the typographic color. So they differentiate here between typographic color and physical color. Typographic color is just a fancy way of saying, is there a variety of textures? Does the color of your page or the textural appearance of it have variety? Basically meaning, did you fill the page with large letters and everything is the same size and everything feels like it carries the same weight? Or did you vary the different elements on your page? So some are heavy in weight, some are small and light, some are large and blocky, creating texture by using different types of type. You can use sans serifs and serifs together. That kind of creates an interesting dichotomy. So that's typographic color, as opposed to the next step is physical color. You do need a minimum of 3 colors. They suggest to search for color palette ideas online. One really cool tool you might want to check out is at color.adobe.com. And this color wheel here, you can play around with it a bit, but basically you can establish any kind of color palette you can think of. So over here they have all the different color harmonies: analogous, monochromatic, triad, complementary, take you back to your beginning art days. But if you choose one of these palettes, then you can use your cursor to just drag this around the wheel, and as you can see below, it's establishing a palette based on the color I've chosen and the type of color palette. So this is a monochromatic one, so we see we have all these hues of green, whereas if we choose analogous and then move it around, we have evenly spaced 5 colors around the wheel: triad, complementary. So just give this a little play if you're having trouble deciding on your color scheme. And I think there's a way that you can even save this color palette, and if you're logged into Creative Cloud, bring it directly into your InDesign file. So you don't ask me how to do that right now, but it looks like if I was logged in, it would just give me the option to save, and it would sync with my software pretty easily. So take a look at that. The last section here is just the concept. Have you established a concept? We talked about this in week 1. Look at the theme of your talk and see if there's a way you can represent that typographically. Whether the theme is light versus dark, good versus evil, or the theme is choices, accountability, love, repentance, anything. And that's what we did with the brain map we did at the first week of this project. So just make sure that your concept makes sense, it's obvious to the reader, and it's bringing something to your booklet. And yeah, last of all, they just say to make sure that you have all the required parts. Within your booklet, you need page numbers, captions, subheads, block quotes, headlines, running headers, and footers. So make sure that is all there. And you know what to do with the rest of this. Make sure your Ponder page is filled out and everything is uploaded. And that is it for this week. And feel free to leave any questions in the comments. Good luck.